Rory, we'll come to you in just a moment. Thank you very much for being here this morning. Really appreciate it. I know you've had to move things around back in the UK there, so thank you for that. Jerry's got a wonderful presentation. Umberto is here to talk about, well, the eccentricities, I would say. We know what Umberto's like. Anyone who's been to a webinar before with Umberto, always interesting, fascinating information from this wonderful asset in our community, Umberto. And I think he's got a bit of a slideshow. And I know as well, there are people in our community who've got things to say, including Hakeem, who sent me a lovely slide with some stats about electric vehicles. So we've got a lot to fit in the next, 80 minutes or so. And we will begin with a little vignette about hiring a car, renting a car, as you Americans would say. You call them rentals, don't you? We call them hire cars in the UK. Rory, are you there?
I am indeed. Hello, Carl. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to meet you. I have to start by saying I'm a massive fan of Zest. I've been using your service for about 4 years now, since I've been in Portugal. Been very lazy, got used to using your hire cars, and I work with your superstars in Lisbon, but in Portugal, right. Rent Auto. And I think your company's fantastic. So thank you for being here tonight. What can you tell us about renting in Portugal?
Well, I've got quite a wealth of experience. 21 years ago, Zest is 21 years old actually this month. So,
congratulations!
I started the business up all that time ago. So that's a fair amount of experience. So I guess really, where do you want me to start? Because it's quite exhaustive, and there's lots of variables and things. But I can give you an intro on Zest.
First thing is, were you 10 years of age when you started it? would be my
no, I was 20. But there's a long story goes with how we ended up with setting up a car rental broker, which I won't bore you with tonight. Perhaps that's a story for another evening, I think.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm up for that another time, but certainly, so Portugal specific then, how easy? I mean, that's what people want to know, isn't it? We've got people coming over from all over the world who want to be in Portugal, either on their visits, their research visits, or we see a question already. I'm from Yorkshire. How cheap are you? As you might expect. Well, we'll come back to that, Rory.
Okay.
But what is it you love about Portugal? Now, how easy is it to book with you? People coming from all over the world, the last thing they want is hassle, right? They want an easy booking and they want an easy pickup at the other end. That's my experience. If you tell us more about that.
Well, that's ultimately why everybody hires with us, for that hassle-free experience. It's good that one of somebody on here has mentioned price, because there are cheap prices for car hire out there, but you generally get what you pay for. So there are some unscrupulous companies that might charge you for damages. If you return the vehicle back with some damages on, they might try to charge you for those. So we take all of that hassle and stress out of car rental by including excess protection, which covers you in the event of collision damage. So that right from the very beginning, we've always been very customer focused, and we strongly believe in generating repeat business by providing a good service and a good product, so that people come back to us again and again. Our team in the UK, they're on hand to handle issues 24/7. We have an out-of-hours support service as well. So we're always at the end of the telephone if there's any issues. But to be honest, generally there isn't, especially in Portugal. We work with some fantastic local providers in Portugal. They're all absolutely brilliant. We work closely with them. And we monitor the service very closely. So you might have seen, Carl, when you've hired a car, you get a customer survey after the rental. And we rely on, that's just some of the data that we rely on to measure the service that's provided. And we revisit these feedback scores on a monthly basis. And we have a certain minimum service standard that we expect. And all of the car companies we work with in Portugal, they exceed those standards by far. They really are excellent. So shouldn't have any problems if you hire with us in Portugal. And in fact, anywhere else in the rest of the world. But in Portugal, whether it must be the people. The people are so lovely in Portugal. Welcoming, friendly, hospitable, and they know how to do business properly. And that's which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we come back to the $1 million insurance question, which I'm sure you get asked quite a lot, it's good to know that people who are coming from America, let's say, and are very giddy about being in Europe and want to go to Spain, maybe drive to France, you can manage all of that from a car rented in Portugal, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. In almost all cases, border exit to Spain, it doesn't come with a charge. So, and that's absolutely fine. As long as you mention it when you book, you can do that. And there's no restriction on driving license. So pretty much anywhere from around the world can hire a car in Portugal through us. Yeah.
So take us through this then. This is a great question, and I think it's one that you've been asked before, and it's always there in the back of people's minds, I think, when they arrive in a new country and they're being asked to trade up for this insurance and that insurance. I've lost the actual question now, but just you know what I'm getting at here.
Oh yes.
The way you work, you give people the choice, but we can assure people they're not going to be assaulted at with a financial sort of doom scenario at the airport and be invited to trade up when they're exhausted from traveling. You can do this all in advance, and you can choose the insurance level you wish, right?
Yes. Now we do secret shopping on our competitors, so we know what it's like when somebody arrives at a desk and they're told, well, you're not insured. Oh, we don't recognize this insurance. Oh, I've heard it all actually. I
bet.
I really have, and to the point actually with one company where they were arguing with me, and I said, look, it says no excess on here, and he argued back and said, yes, that's right, there is no excess, there's no insurance, and all this. So it can be pretty awful, especially after you've traveled a long way. You've got up early, been on the flight, you've done a lot of queuing, and when you get to the car rental desk, all you want to do is to get in the car and drive off.
Yes.
And the last thing you need is hassle. So yes, the way it works with us is we either negotiate zero excess in the rates itself, so the excess is covered by the car rental provider, or in some cases, and this is quite rare in Portugal that we do this, but we bolt in an excess reimbursement insurance into the price. So where other companies, other competitors, other car rental brokers will try to charge you extra for insurance, excess insurance, we actually bolt that into the price. We do offer a top-up insurance, which covers things like the roof, the interior, wheels, tires, the things that you're responsible for looking after, because damage to the interior can only really be done by you in a negligent way, and tires, after all, are a consumable part of the vehicle. And if you don't look after the car and try not to crash it into the curb, then it's probably only fair that you pay for the damage to that. So things like that will be covered by our additional top-up insurance, but that's available for quite a very fair price, which is £3 per day at the moment, and that's not likely to change for the in the meantime. And if you look at some of the insurance provided by our competitors, I think they charge something like £12 per day for the full excess insurance. So overall, coming back to price, you get what you pay for. With us, you get additional driver included with all of the car rental companies that we work with in Portugal. There's unlimited mileage with everybody. So there is really very little extra that you would be expected to pay for. And of course, no surprises.
Yeah, excellent. That's good to know. All right. And so another great question, actually. Well, the first question we need to address, Jeff, is the name of the car rental is Zest. And you are based in the UK, aren't you? But
That's right. Yeah. Based in the UK, based in Norfolk. So the dreary weather, I'm not sure if you can see behind me, but it's raining in Norfolk at the moment. So I did toy with the idea of putting the laptop outside, but no chance of that tonight, I'm afraid.
Very different to the Alentejo tonight then. Amazing.
Yes.
Driving licenses. This is important, Rory, for people, isn't it? When they arrive, what sort of driving licenses could you have an international permit? How does that work for people?
So really in Portugal, they are quite relaxed in terms of licensing. They don't like to make things difficult for people. To actually collect a car with any of our providers, with the exception of probably a few like Centauro and one of the multinationals like Hertz. The local companies that you mentioned, one of them, was it Rent Auto, Carl?
Rent Auto, yeah, my favourites.
And Master Kings, Drive for Fun, Travel Rent, and rent car for less, they won't query any licenses. They'll obviously want to see your license and that you've got a license to drive. You've actually passed your driving driving test, etc. But they are fairly relaxed. The police, on the other hand, may be slightly different. So it would be advisable to get an international driving license if you were coming from some Arabic country or some country where or let's just say if your driving license is not written in Roman numerals, then it would be advisable to get an international driving license.
That's a good guide. That's a good guide. Excellent. I think we know what you mean with that. That's great. Alan's asking, I think we answered your earlier question, Alan. We'll address this thing about people taking out their own extra insurances and how that works, how that dovetails with you. But just very quickly, additional fees if more than one driver. I know I've taken advantage of that. You allow 2 drivers for the same price, don't you?
That's right. Yep. So there's always an additional driver is always free of charge in Portugal when you rent with us. So and actually there are some providers that don't charge for any additional drivers on top of the additional driver. So if there's 4 or 5 of you in the car that want to drive, then that's absolutely fine, and it's no extra charge to do so.
We're getting an excellent for that from Alan, as we should.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
The other part of it. What was I going to ask? I can't remember now.
The dovetailing of the insurance.
Yes, that's the one. That's exactly that. Because people think, okay, I'm not gonna be stung by the rental company or the insurance companies. I'm going to take out my own premium. And you see this, don't you? And people talk about it. Does that work well?
It does. So if they take their own insurance out, their own excess reimbursement insurance, that's fine, and some people do that. Sometimes there can be a delay in getting reimbursement of any charges. If you take the additional insurance out with us, which is that top-up insurance, obviously they don't need to for the excess. So if you're driving along and you have a collision with somebody, all of that is covered. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to take out any excess insurance, separate excess insurance policy. But of course, some people like to be fully covered, and they may take out a daily excess insurance separately, or they may even have an annual policy. But if you take our top-up insurance out, then you actually don't need that at all. But some people still do. But
good to know. That's superb. Okay, maximum hire period. We'd love to have you back at some stage, Rory, because we do have to move on quite soon. But
okay.
Maximum hire periods with you.
So it depends. So it can be sort of 90 days. We can push through longer rentals as well. I think if you've got a long rental, then the best thing to do is to give our customer support team a call, and we can always arrange a longer rental. And in some cases we can actually negotiate a slightly better price as well, because if you're collecting in the peak season and your long rental goes through the winter, then you could end up paying more than you would if you picked it up in winter and hired through your long rental went through the summer. Yeah. So it would probably be better to give us a call and we'll sort something out. But I mean, in terms of advice, general advice for people hiring cars, because I appreciate that not everybody will end up hiring with us, and that's fine. But the one thing I would say I always do when I hire a car is I always take photographs of the bodywork all the way around the car when I collect it, and I take a picture of the dashboard, which will show the fuel gauge and the mileage, and then when I return the car, I do the same. And that way, if there's any issues with damage, then you can very easily show 2 sets of photos and say, well, look, it wasn't me. This didn't happen during our rental. So that's the best piece of advice that I've got. Absolutely right. And most people with a smartphone will be able to do that. And that's the advice from the man on the other side of the counter. That is fantastic, Rory. I think Astra's got a question.
No, not a question. I just wanted to make sure that we added that we have negotiated a 5% discount off the car rental fees from our friends at Zest Car Rental. So if anyone does want to make the most of that opportunity, it's not on the website at the moment, so it's about to be launched this week. But if you want to get in early, feel free to email me at astrid@expatsportugal.com and I'll send you through the discount code.
I'm a bit upset now because I don't think I've taken advantage of that. But anyway, that's my problem. That's my problem, Rory, and not anyone else.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here, giving us the heads up and the lowdown on all of that. Anything else we should know from you?
Off the top of my head, at the moment, if you're looking to travel in September, I'd be looking to book car hire now, because we're already seeing that September is going to be really busy. The actual the availability of cars by the time we get to September is going to be very low indeed, because a lot of the providers around the world in all holiday hotspots have reduced their fleets, and they can't get new vehicles quickly. So when availability is squeezed, when demand outstrips supply, then the prices do go up, and you can obviously you can understand that many of the car rental companies have probably lost a lot of money over the last year and a half, so they're going to use that opportunity to make a bit of additional profit. So book ahead.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that was certainly going to be one of the questions I was going to ask you tonight. But clearly, you've weathered that storm, thankfully.
Okay.
And it is fascinating, isn't it? Availability will be low, and the prices have gone up because some people were expecting the market to collapse, and there'll be some really good deals around. But availability has meant that it's going to stay buoyant, isn't it? It's going to be expensive. Let's face it, across the board for car hire and rentals in September.
Yeah, it is, and it's all really, obviously the government haven't been very helpful with their, green list, red list, amber list, etc.
Oh yeah.
So from 1 minute there's lots of vehicles sitting there and that can't be hired out and that might be available quite cheap, and then the next day everybody's rushing to Portugal booking holidays, and the prices for car hire is going through the roof. Yeah. But I generally, my advice is always book ahead early, and if you're happy with the price, book it and pay that price, and then forget about it, and then it's done. Rather than some people sort of they sort of compare prices all the time, and then sometimes they lose out, the vehicle's not available, the price has shot up. But the kind of the lack of availability in the market is sort of partially related to COVID, but also there's an issue with manufacturing semiconductor chips, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yes, indeed,
That's had a massive impact on the car manufacturers, and cars just aren't coming down to end users, and that's the same for car rental companies as well. So
fascinating. Rory, thank you so much for manfully stepping in tonight. All the best regards to the team in the UK.
Thank you.
And keep up the good work. Thanks for stepping in tonight. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be on. Thank you very much.
All right, bye for now.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
And sorry if we didn't get to all your questions tonight, but we're going to be doing motoring again, absolutely, with the demand that we've had and the interest that there is. So, and we'll invite Zess back at that time. Cheers to Rory. Over to Jerry now for a presentation, a bit of an all-rounder presentation, I believe, Jerry, on motoring in Portugal.
Yes, just keep talking while I figure out how to share my screen.
What I find amazing about that is this whole thing about a lack of chips, and we're not talking about French fries, potato. We're talking about silicon chips, aren't we? Affecting car supply, which then affects the rental market because there are too few vehicles to go around, and the pandemic effect as well. So, in the way that we anticipated property prices going down in Portugal because of the pandemic and people will get a bargain, didn't happen. Same thing with rentals and hire cars. The demand on a smaller amount of vehicles has kept the prices buoyant, sadly. But you get 5% off that, as Astrid has organised for us, which is the silver lining there. How are you doing, Jerry?
Fingers crossed. Yes, I think I've got it. Can everybody see that? Is it?
Can see your first slide there. Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Okay. All right. Thanks, Carl. Well, I'm going to give a very general overview of buying and owning a car in Portugal. I'll try to cover everything at the highest level without going down into too much detail because there's so much to cover. So let's start with taking a look at where to buy a car in Portugal. My recommendation is to buy from a dealer rather than an unknown private individual. The reasons are that you will get some kind of warranty, either the manufacturer's warranty, if there's still some available, or a dealer's own warranty, which can often be up to 2 years. Small dealers tend to work through a network of other garages. So if you buy a car in Faro, for example, and you live in Coimbra, and you need to claim something off the warranty, the dealer in Faro will have a connection with someone in Coimbra that you can go to, and they'll cover the repair. Any outstanding finance will have been checked. That's very important because it's possible to borrow a high amount of money on cars in Portugal. And the risk is if you buy a car without outstanding finance on it, you can inherit the debt. So it's very important that you avoid that at all costs, obviously, and the dealer should have checked all that. The dealer will also handle the registration requirements. I think it's normally about 60 euros for them to do that, but they'll make sure the car is properly registered in your name. And most dealers will have a get you home insurance. So you can buy the car and they will be able to provide you insurance for up to 2 weeks or something until you get back and sort out your own insurance policy. A couple of good recommendations for websites are there, Stand Virtual and OLX. To look at cars, Stand Virtual tend to deal with traders, with dealers. OLX tend to deal with private sellers, but they are good sources of information in terms of looking at cars. I say this now because of largely for our American friends, where this might not be an issue in the States, but it's certainly an issue in Europe. Consider the type of fuel and the mileage per gallon that you will get from your car, because fuel prices are quite high in Portugal. For example, diesel is currently €1.40 per litre, which is about $7.47 per American gallon. And petrol or gasoline is $1.70 per litre, which is about $9.08 per American gallon. So it is important to make sure you get a car that has good performance services. Insurance. I've got some example prices here. A small family car registered in 2016, 300 euros with fully comprehensive insurance. A medium family car registered in 2016, 216 euros, third party only. A large executive car, 2017, 800 euros, fully comprehensive. In Portugal, you insure the car, not the driver. So once the car is insured, anyone that's legally entitled to may drive the car. You have an option for third-party insurance or third-party with fire and theft or fully comprehensive insurance. But comprehensive insurance is not usually available for cars over 10 years old. The insurance policy will include breakdown recovery in Portugal at least. That might also be extended into other countries depending on the individual policy, but it is a requirement that breakdown recovery is included in all insurance in Portugal. Most insurance policies will include cover to drive within the EU and possibly some other countries as well, as UK, for example, but that'll be down to the individual policies, but certainly the EU will be covered. And a valid insurance certificate must be displayed on the vehicle windscreen. Our recommended insurance partners are Winsurance and have some very attractive rates for our members, and you can see their details here if you wish to contact them. Road tax. Yes, we have to pay tax on cars, surprise, surprise. The cost varies depending on the age and engine size of the car. It's called IUC. For a small family saloon, again, using my examples, registered in 2016, it's about 130 euros per annum. For the medium family saloon, about 146 euros per annum. And for the large saloon, 225 euros per annum. Vehicles registered up to 2007 have lower tax rates because the law was changed at that point and the taxes were increased. IPO is a vehicle safety inspection certificate. It's similar to an MOT in the UK. Testing the brakes, the lights, and all things safety. All cars over 4 years of age must have an IPO test for roadworthiness. Cars from 4 to 8 years old must be retested every 2 years, and after that, they must be retested every year. You make an appointment at a local IPO center, there are plenty of them about, and it costs about €30 for the inspection and the certificate. Driving license. Now, I realize this is a big subject, and I'm just going to try and stay on the top of this one. Basically, you must exchange your license for a Portuguese license within 90 days of establishing residency in Portugal. You can do this online, or by visiting your local IMT office. I personally recommend you do it online, having spent the best part of the day queuing in the IMT office in Leiria. You will need a medical certificate from your doctor, your residency permit, and your current driving license. And then they will exchange your current driving license. They'll give you a piece of paper as a temporary license, and you'll get a new license in a few weeks' time in the post. This is a question that's come up a few times on a forum, so I'd just like to cover it. A Portuguese license is a standard EU-approved license and can be used in most other countries around the world. I have a Portuguese license. Since having a Portuguese license, I've rented cars with it in the USA, in Ireland, in the UK, in France, and had no problem. So don't think that a Portuguese license has any less weight than any other license around the world. IMT Online are the people, then there's a good information online with regard to license exchange. The timings and so on can vary depending on the country where your original license has been issued. And of course, our good friends at ACP, the Automobile Club of Portugal, if you're a member of ACP, then they can help you with license exchange if you have any issues. I just briefly mentioned that if you are beyond the standard driving license, i.e. you won't drive larger vehicles or whatever, you will be subject to some more checks in terms of exchanging license. All of that you can see on IMT Online or speak to ACP. Anything else? Few things. You must carry your ID, your passport, your driving license, and your insurance certificate in your car at all times. You must also carry a warning triangle and a high-vis jacket, and they recommend a first aid kit and high-vis jackets for all passengers. Toll fees are payable on many, if not most, motorways. You pay by its electronic click on your car registration plate in the main, and then you pay by going to a pay shop, giving them the registration number, and they'll tell you how much you owe. Or you rent an electronic tag and stick it on the vehicle, and it automatically charges your bank account. That's what I use. Very efficient. Never have any problems with it, and it actually works out slightly cheaper than using the other option. Again, for all the other stuff with regard to cars, particularly about matriculation, importation of cars, legal advice, classic car club, and so on, we do highly recommend that you consider joining the Automobile Club, and we have discounts available if you apply through us. So now we get down to taking a look at what you might be able to buy here in Portugal. And I've looked at 4 budgets, 10, 15, 20, and 30,000 euros. And just wanted to give you an example, some ideas of what you could buy here within those budgets. All of the cars I'm about to show you come with a warranty. The MPG figures are fairly accurate, but don't take me to court over it if I've got it slightly wrong, okay? So we start with the 10,000, and I looked for a small runabout car, then I looked for a medium-sized family car, and then a larger, more luxurious car. And this is what I found. These vehicles are all on sale now. My small car here is very good MPG, and not a bad age for its price and its mileage. Medium-sized car will be slightly older in this price range, but this one's a diesel, so it has very good MPG. And then if you want a bit more luxury, a good old Mercedes diesel will have a higher mileage, but that's nothing for a Mercedes diesel, and you'll still get a good MPG, and you'll get all the bells and whistles. If you can take your budget up to 15,000, this is the sort of thing you can get. An almost new Renault Clio, again, very good MPG. Newer petrol cars the performance is much improved. A medium-sized car, here's a good example, an Opel Astra Sports, would be known as a Vauxhall in the UK. Just under 15,000. 2017, again, excellent MPG, but that's because it's diesel. Or a big old lump of a Mercedes, an E-Class Mercedes, the height of luxury, will be older and will have a higher mileage, but that's nothing for a big old diesel. And again, you get all the bells and whistles. And take your budget up to 20,000. You can start to buy almost new cars. Here we have a Ford Fiesta with 1 mile on the clock, actually less than 1 mile, I think. Obviously, it's never been used. I think is a very good price. Bit more upmarket and medium-sized Audi A3. This one's a petrol, but again, good MPG. It's also an automatic, whereas most of the other cars, I think, apart from the luxury ones, have been manual. Or you can get a BMW. This time I've looked at a 5 Series, again, a diesel. Not so high mileage, and again, not a big mileage for this kind of car. Just under 20,000 euros. And then if you want to push the boat out, well, here's a brand new Ford Cougar for under 30,000 with 1 mile on the clock, or a Jeep Compass. Again, 1 mile on the clock, 36 mpg, all the bells and whistles, or a newer BMW 5 Series 2017, so that's pretty good, 56,000 miles, pretty good, 52 miles per gallon, again, with all the bells and whistles. So those are the sort of standard petrol or diesel cars you can buy within those budget ranges. Then I also had a look at electric vehicles, which are still really rolling out here in Portugal. But I was able to find a Nissan Leaf under 10,000, 53,000 miles, only 107-mile range, but that car is for sale today. Now, I actually struggled to find a car in the 50 up to 10 to 15,000 bracket that wasn't a small smart car or something like that. But I did find this Hyundai under 20,000. A decent sized car, 156 mile range. And of course, there's the good old Tesla. And Teslas are starting to come onto the market now secondhand, particularly the Tesla 3, which seems to be becoming quite a common car here in Portugal. This is about the average price for any Tesla at the moment that's used. 43,500 is about the price you'll pay to get yourself into a Tesla. Lastly, talk a little bit about driving in Portugal. We've only got 4.9 million cars, which, just as a quick comparison, the UK has 32.7, so we've got a few less. So outside of our built-up areas like Lisbon and Porto, the roads are really quiet and all the roads are in good condition. The scenery is pretty good, and going for a drive is a real pleasure in Portugal. It's actually quite hard to go for a drive and not spot a castle. You ever tried that, Carl?
It's not possible, is it?
It's not possible, is it? Old cars are very common in Portugal because they don't rust and are relatively cheap to maintain. The Portuguese love estate cars, or station wagons, I think they call them in the States. And for some strange reason, black is their favorite color, which is really odd when you think how hot it is. Why they aren't all white, I have no idea. But black is the favorite. Perhaps Anna can tell us why that is. Maybe there's some reason we don't know. Portuguese drivers do not study the art of indicating. I don't think it's part of the driving test, indicating. I think it's been crossed off the Portuguese list. They do like to get very close to your rear, which is their way of telling you they want to overtake. Of course, if they knew how to use the indicator, they could do that instead, but no, they like to get really close to your rear. And Portuguese pedestrians, their favorite pastime in my mind seems to be to leap onto a crossing and assume you can stop in a nanosecond. But generally speaking, driving is really a pleasure here in Portugal. And it certainly renews my faith in just going for a drive just for the fun of it. That's it. Thank you for listening. See you in Portugal.
Jerry's catchphrase there. I love it. Stuck in a see you in Portugal at the end. Brilliant, Jerry. That is superb. And I'm sure we'll generate some more questions. We have some info just in from Hakeem, which we're qualifying at the moment about electric vehicles. But Anna may like to answer that or comment on some of the other things there. Jerry, as a BMW driver, you're not worried about indicating anyway, are you, Jerry? That's not a problem for you, is it?
No, you don't. BMW drivers don't do that either.
No, exactly. So no problems there. Anna, why is black the favorite color of motor vehicles in Portugal?
Hello, everybody. I really do not know. Maybe it's to get away of the white, because the white is work cars. So probably they look more luxurious if they come in black. But I don't know if there is some other explanation. Now I don't think it's black. It tends to be dark gray or something like that. I think people consider them more luxurious than the bright colors. But I have no explanation. Sorry.
So no, it's fine. That was an amazing presentation, Jerry, and I'm sure you'll be glad to get a few of those cars out of your front garden soon. If anybody, no.
Yes, I'm hoping so, Carl. Yes.
Only kidding, but some people will want to know the links to those cars, won't they? Because there were some lovely looking motors there. So a very thorough and brilliant presentation, which we thank you for.
Well, Carl, we can put that presentation on the forum, so anybody can download it if they want a copy of it and get the links and so on.
It's superb, really good. We didn't talk too much about importation. Which is a question we knew would come up tonight. There are people who want to import huge camper vans from the United States. There are people who want to pick up a camper van on the way from the UK, from America, go to the UK, pick up a camper van. And this question of how long you have to own it so that you don't have to pay too much tax on it. Umberto might know the answer to that, who's up next with a little bit of a slideshow and the special Umberto angle on motoring in Portugal. A lover of classic cars, a restorer of classic cars, right, Umberto? Tell us about yourself and your love of vehicles.
Okay, I'm Portuguese. I live here in Marvão, which is one of the nicest places to be, passionate with classical cars. The roads here are very good, and you have a lot of space, so you will not find much cars to cross. So the roads are mainly quite for you if you want. The advantage here, importing cars. Okay, when it comes out from the EU, it is very expensive because they will have a special taxation. So if you're thinking bringing a modern American car to Portugal, I would consider that not a good idea, unless it is a very special thing. It has something personal. Otherwise, I would suggest you to look for in Europe. And then if you are something interesting, you can bring it in Europe to Portugal easily. Yeah. I think also Gary has already said ACP is very good organized in this kind of things. And if you want, you can ask them, they make you a simulation what it will cost and what will be the expenses and all the procedures that you will have to do. So if you want to do it by yourself, I assure you it's a hell of a work.
Right, okay. So you're basically advising against, unless the vehicle is very precious to you.
Yes. If you come out from the EU, if it is from the EU, it's not a problem. There's another issue that has to be taken in consideration. If you are coming the first time to Portugal and you're going to live here, normally it is allowed by taxes that you bring one car with you, which is at least longer than 6 months in your belong, yeah, so you are the owner of it.
Yeah,
so that you can in this case you can bring the car without any expenses. Well, basic expenses. They are going to make some checks and some registration paperwork that you have to do, but it will not be taxed in this way. Yeah.
Okay, that's if it's in your possession for more than 6 months.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what can be very interesting for car lovers from America, if they want to bring or somewhere else, if you bring cars from these countries with the first registration is before 1st of January 1917. If you have that, you can bring the car without any extra costs because it's considered a classical car or historical valued car. So they consider that not as a vehicle for road but it's more like you have it because you have a collection of it or whatever. So you don't have much taxation on that. And even the road taxes are completely free. And again, if you have a good insurance company, even the insurance for this kind of cars normally costs not more than 100 euros a year. Okay.
Amazing.
So it's very cheap for this kind of cars. And I personally like very much old for here, old Renault 4s. They are lovely. And what is my thinking of cars? Why buy a new one when you still have one good one running? Yeah, so it's much easier to keep an old car running, and it's not even cost. It's quite cost efficient to keep an old car running. And even if people sometimes say, yeah, but your car is a polluter, it pollutes more than the other cars. Well, my car is already 30 years old. If I would have changed all the time my cars, I think the production of a new car would be more or worse in CO2 and emissions than it would be using my old car. But you see, it's a point of view. And the other thing is, I don't like very much spending money in a car that I buy. For instance, I buy a new car and it costs me 60,000 euros. And after a year, the car is only 45,000 euros value. So probably this is also not a good option, yeah, because, hey, this means if you make a cost, it costs you what, 1.5 euros a kilometer that you made with the car. If I drive my old Renault 4 that I bought for 1,000 euros, I already restored it and made some really overhauls in the engine and so on. And by the way, I think I spent it in the total of his lifetime that I'm using it, and I made already about 100 miles on him. Yeah, I spent what, 2,000 euros with a new paint. Yeah, so, and even if I want to sell this car now, they will give me the money for that. So I think it is also a question how important the car is for you.
This is very interesting. I think it's a cultural shift as well, possibly for some people in North America, to be driving something old. You know, maybe a different statement about the person than the cherished possession in Europe of an old car. So it is a cultural shift we're talking about here, isn't it, Umberto? And are we not going to see some pictures of your lovely cars here? Did you not prepare a little?
I provided, but I have to say that I'm really bad on this internet thing.
I think Astrid. I think you're really good. I think you're really good on this internet thing, and it's great to have you here. And Astrid may well be able to. There we go. Look, here are some pictures, possibly of a Renault 4 here. These are the vehicles.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. Right.
There are some mixed pictures. Some cars that I just like, and that is the pictures why I did. For instance, I had the pleasure to be in Goodwood Revival, and I was fascinated how fantastic old times can be in modern times. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed.
So we had some cars. So this is kind of Goodwood that I had at that time. And in the beginning, you had a car that was the MGB. That is a car that I built. I restored in my time already 6 of these cars.
Wow.
And I love those cars because they are small, sporty, and quite easy to drive for an old car. So there are some beautiful cars that I like. This is the cars of my passion.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then the last pictures you see, this is one of my first projects that was an MGB coupe. It was a 58. It's with a 1500 engine, and I rebuilt it from scratch. And the other one is an MGB that I rebuilt. Also, I do all the work with cabling. Well, I did everything on it. You can see the car. Here is another project that I'm doing that I have now the body work done. It's completely painted, and lots of spare parts are already ready to be mounted on it. It needs now to build up the engine in it, which is already ready, waiting for me to do that work.
Incredible. So if this is of interest to people, you're the man to get in touch with, because I think what happens with cars is there are people who just don't want, who want as little to do with it as possible. They want to get something reliable and never have to think about it, or as little as possible. And then you're at the other end of the spectrum, aren't you? Who you absolutely love cars, you have beautiful memories of cars, and there will be people in this community like that. So we're trying to serve both audiences tonight. And I think Jerry's presentation was very helpful. Of like, this is what you can spend, this is what you'll get, and then you can forget about it. But if you do fancy yourself driving in the Alentejo with the top down and maybe a neckerchief blowing in the wind in the beautiful Alentejo countryside, Umberto is your man. I mean, that is a lovely vision to aspire to, I think, in Portugal, isn't it?
I have to say that I have owned 2 MGBs. That was my daily car here in Alentejo for 2 years, and even my dog loved it. Yeah,
I bet. Yeah, I can see you both in my mind's eye with your dog with his tongue hanging out as he's going along at 50 kilometers per hour down a country lane. Fantastic. Before we open this up, share with us, if you will, these vehicles that people in Portugal who don't have driving licenses are allowed to buy. There is a particular kind of vehicle, isn't there? So if you don't, and Anna's really hiding behind her hand now, I think this might be something of a national embarrassment. I'm not sure, but we're going to find out right now. This is a vehicle, you can hear it coming before you see it. Sometimes it will have an elderly couple in, the man and his wife, maybe going to Lidl for the weekly shop. What is this, and why are they so expensive?
Well, these are cars which are allowed to be driven by a normal motorcycle, this small plate motorcycles license. So you don't really need a license to drive this kind of cars. And therefore they are limited to a total speed of 40 kilometers an hour. But of course, you will find some guys, well, in the land side, you will find some guys who really tune those things. Yeah, they really go.
So there's an option. There's another option. Anna, I think there's a colloquial name for these vehicles that you don't want to get stuck behind, right? What is the colloquial name for these?
Yeah, we call it 2 names. One of them is Papa Reformas.
Yes.
Which means they will absorb all the money from the retirees. And the other one is Mata Velhos, which means kill old people.
Oh dear. Okay, that's
because
not good.
Because they are dangerous. That's why. It's because they are dangerous, and there are 2 kinds of those cars. The ones for people that were not able to take a driving license because they did not know how to do it when they were young. And there are others that are used by teenagers because you can drive them when you are 16.
Oh,
so dear. Rich parents buy those killing machines for the teenagers. So
not looked
some
on
of them are truly racing. Some of them are, you can take the roof. So they are very appealing for the teenagers, but sometimes they are dangerous, of course, because they are very small. They do not have all kinds of security as regular cars. And, teenagers are a little bit crazy driving them, so it's a mixed feeling. So
of course, no, totally understand, and thank you for educating us on that. Rebecca says, "Aren't iJum similar to Vespas but with a roof?" That's not a bad guess, actually.
They are similar,
But I would like to put something on that. Also, the reason why it's called Mata Velhos is if you drive with a car like that in a tiny road with lots of corners and curves, and you have a truck driver who comes behind you, he will never expect that you are so slow behind the corner, and so he pushes you in front of them. So that's the reason why they call it also Mata Velhos. Okay.
Okay, so but I mean, it's something to watch out for in the countryside for the new driver to absolutely be aware of that, and you might even see them in the big cities as well.
And I think the prices are very high.
They are
because they are not a real car. Well, they are a car, but not a real. Because companies that made them take advantage because people really needs them if they do not have a driving license. And of course, the other ones are the richest kids. So parents are wanting to buy them as a gift before they have 18 years. So they are expensive because of that. Okay. Most of the times you can find a regular car less expensive than that car. So
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. And we knew this would happen. People are sending in pictures of their classic cars. Those people who love vehicles. Thank you, Hakeem, who is a Renault 4-ophile, if we can call him that, and has even sent in a picture of that. Let's address a few of the questions if we can. And as I said at the beginning, there are going to be some questions that I think go unanswered here. Let's get them on the forum. We'll get ACP in and we'll ask some of those really specialist things that it seems to be very peculiar to the motoring issues. There are some very personal issues that we need to get to the bottom of. We'll do our best tonight, but I think we are going to have to carry a few things forward. Who was talking about an Arbath there? Oh, Neil, plan to bring our Arbath 124 Spider and a 112 Autobanchi. One is 2018, the other 1982, and shipped to Madeira from mainland Portugal. Can you recommend a good company? We'll leave that hanging there, Neil. At some point, I'm sure we'll be able to help you with that. There is a difference between old and classic. You quite rightly point out, Anna. Not necessarily the same thing.
An old car is different from a classic. And the insurance you were talking about for classic cars are very specific. So if you get a classic insurance for your car, insurance for your classic car, you pay less, but you cannot drive the car as you wish. So it's not covered if you are on a regular use of the car. So
thank you
it's
for
important to know that. Okay.
Yeah, and worth having a conversation with our man Nuno Mendes from Winsurance, because I know he insured my car for me, an old Skoda, and I managed to get that insured, I think, for €220 for the year or something like that. Did a great deal. But I know he works at the classic end as well. He can pretty much get anything insured in any area of your life, including your classic and beloved car. Diesel, governments wanted everybody to have a diesel for a while, didn't they? Then suddenly they don't, and they are now the scourge of the Greta Thunberg's worst nightmare. Any news on that, Jerry, about when diesels might be banned in Portugal?
No, none that I can find. I actually asked that question of ACP recently, and they had no news on that. So as far as I know, there are no plans to ban diesels in Portugal at this point. It may get overtaken because the manufacturers are going to stop making them. It's becoming harder, I think, to buy new diesel cars. So it may get overtaken in time. But when you consider how many old diesels there are in Portugal, probably the vast majority of cars are diesels. I can't see it ending anytime soon in Portugal.
And when it does, it'll be hugely disruptive.
They will become classical.
Classic diesel.
Classical. You're quite right, Carl. It will be hugely disruptive. But there are, as far as we can establish, there are no plans in the pipeline to change anything.
All right, we'll talk a little bit about electric vehicles before we throw it open to general Q&A, and we'll come to you then, Paul, if we may. The other interesting thing was somebody bringing a vehicle from the United States, or even the UK for that matter. And yes, it's problematic, I would say, for both. Coming from inside Europe, fine. Post-Brexit Britain and US, as Humberto was saying, it is a bit of a nightmare, and you'll only want to do it if you're really attached to the vehicle. The other thing you might be attached to is the number plate. Okay, and if you do have something like "I am awesome" on your American number plate, it will be matriculated away, won't it, Jerry? I believe you can't keep that cherished plate here.
No, there is no such thing as a cherished plate here. You get given a number plate by the Portuguese government, and you get what you're given. There is no opportunity to choose nice numbers or any of that nonsense. Doesn't happen.
Really? So for our Chinese viewers as well, you can't ask for number 8s in there or anything like that. You get what you're given.
You get what you're given.
Wow, interesting. Umberto, I think you had something to add there.
Yes, with the number plates, Garrett, let me correct you a little thing. If you have a classical car, when you import it, for instance, an MGB or something, you can ask for the number plate from the period where this car used to be. Okay, so that you are not driving with a modern number plate on a classical car here.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know, isn't it? That's a nice concession.
Yeah, okay. But the number plates here are 2 numbers, 2 letters, 2 numbers, right?
Yeah.
The car also used to have to show the month and year of registration on the number plate, but that's no longer a requirement. So you can sort of de-age the car if you like.
Okay.
If you've got those old plates, you can just change them for the new style plates.
Yep. All right, Umberto, I know you love the classical end, and one thing we could do is we could reenact the scene from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the Bond movie. Diana Rigg, I believe, is driving through the Arribas National Park down near Palmera there. Arrábida National Park.
Yeah.
We could reenact those scenes, couldn't we?
Yes.
From your
If you don't know, but this was the only wife that James Bond married, was this Portuguese weapon smuggler daughter from Ribatejo. Yeah, that was she was the love of James Bond, and
of course,
and they died, and she was killed also in the Serra da Rábida.
Wow, was he just looking for a reunification visa? Is that why he did that, or did he actually love her?
I didn't understand.
We'll never know. No, I was just wondering if he was trying to get a cheeky visa by falling in love with a Portuguese girl and coming. But if things were different then, obviously.
I think so.
And although you're a classic loving man, you do know a little bit about electric vehicles. Thank you to Hakeem for this. As I understand it, and this needs to be verified, not that because we don't believe Hakeem, but because it's a European project and we need some precedent set within our community. But on the top of it, as with Jerry's presentation, we're dealing with the very top end of things here, and we'll go into specifics as the weeks and months roll by. But €3,000 subsidy for the purchase of a new battery electric vehicle, car or a van, limited to one vehicle per person. 6,000 for a fully electric van, like a motorhome, electric motorhome, limited again to one vehicle per person. So these are all limited to one per person for reasons you'd understand. 50% of the purchase value price, up to a maximum of €350 for the purchase of a fully electric moped or motorcycle subsidy, and 50% of the purchase value price of up to a maximum again of €350 for the purchase of a fully electric bicycle. The EU want to subsidize that sort of stuff. Over to you, Umberto, for your view on how well electric vehicle integration is taking place in Portugal.
Well, I think at the moment it's still a little bit hype because it's cheap to do something like that. But on the other hand, here in the countryside, you will have difficulties to have charging stations. It's not so common. You will find them. But then on the other hand, the charging stations are not the kind of station that you will expect. Like, you put the battery there and you will charge your Mercedes, whatever, in 45 minutes. No, forget that. It will take you at least 5-6 hours because the electricity is not strong enough to make charges with 150 amperes or 200 amperes, which will be needed to charge a car in a decent time, like an hour or something like that. So this is very far away. On the other hand, I'm not really a believer that electric mobility is going to be the answer for all the questions that we will have for the future, also in environmental friendliness. I do think that there is something politically missing here, is there are also alternative fuels, like, for instance, synthetic fuels. Nowadays, it is quite easy and possible to produce from CO2 from the air, adding energy to it, and you produce gasoline, which is synthetic gasoline, or diesel, synthetic diesel, or even synthetic jet fuel. And I think this has a logic because of that. Yeah. So if you make this fuel, the artificial fuel, and burn it in your car, you are as same CO2 neutral than anybody else, but with one big difference. You are using the existence infrastructure already. Yeah. So you don't have to open up new roads, making new electrical lights all over the country, making storage places to have capacity to store so much energy that when you will charge you, or the 200 or 400 people will charge their batteries immediately, you will have an amount of energy that has to flow through cablings that I have a certain difficulty to understand, and how it's going to work in a city like Lisbon, for instance. Yeah, so I think also the hybrid technology should be taken in consideration for the future. I think talking only about battery moved cars is not going to solve our problems in the future. And we have to think about that in the world is about 1 billion cars. What are we going to do them? Throw them all away and put batteries in them? I don't know.
Interesting point, Umberto, which we can rely on you for this sort of thing.
I think this has to be discussed more openly. And I think, and we have to understand also, I have to say, I will defend a little bit the car industry. Yeah. So for instance, Volkswagen had this big scandal, messing up with software, cheating everybody. Yeah. Okay. This was a bad image. So Volkswagen, to recover their image, they are doing now only electrical cars. Yeah. And why? Because they are financed, they have support from the state. Things are going to be easier for them to locate their car. And of course, Volkswagen would not come up in this period to say, no, look, we cheated on you, but diesel is still a good idea. Yeah? So it would not come from marketing technology, it wouldn't be nice. The other thing I think is also to be discussed is there is something missing, because not all countries in the world are using electric. So you have to have always also burning cars. For instance, I don't know, in China, I think it's only in 2060 that you have a no emission car. And when we look in our politicians, what we see is they consider a car worked on battery a low emission or a zero emission car, which is not right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you plug it and load the car, you are using what, 50% of burning fuel for doing this electricity. So it's not that advantage that they are saying it is. Yeah. You are not making the dirt behind your car, but you're doing it somewhere else. Yeah. But it's still the same dirt that you are doing. Yeah. So this is a point of view that has to be taken also in consideration. And if you consider, for instance, synthetic fuels, you could really manage to keep things going without really changing everything. Yeah, you don't have to reallocate, you don't have to get new boats, transport ways, new pipelinings, nothing like that. You could use what is already existing. Yeah. And then if you put the thinking in all together, if you want to use renewable energy, probably it's easier to do that in the desert like the Sahara or Atacama or somewhere else in South America or even in Australia. And you load them with solar panels, you will have so much energy that you can't use anywhere else. Yeah. So why not using a refinery or synthetic fuel infrastructure in a place like that? Yeah. And then you can transport this energy by boat, which is using also synthetic fuel, so it's CO2 neutral, yeah. And it's driven to Europe, and we can have that fuel here for our old cars, like my Renault 5, which will love to run on that.
Yes, indeed. Umberto, you've done it again. You've broadened our minds to something new. You've challenged the accepted thinking. That's why we love to have you here. And you have got other men excited in the comments here tonight, talking about synthetic fuels and hydrogen. Although you didn't talk about hydrogen. Hydrogen has been mentioned, and there are hydrogen vehicles in use in Qashqai, apparently, which is great. Yes. So you know where he is. You know where you can find him on the forum. You could talk to him as an Ask Our Expats expert. That's Umberto. Thank you so much. Diana says to you, thank you, Umberto. I think my husband might finally be persuaded to relocate to Portugal without needing to import his US Roadster. He will definitely want to meet you. I think it's a cue for me to speak to Umberto. And excellent comment, Stephen. Very keen to join ACP. And now that we have a date to come over to Portugal, would like to get this sorted soonest. I want to utilize their services to get my Passat estate hybrid registered in Portugal and driving license changed, etc., etc. So ACP, a really good shout for all sorts of benefits and perks, which we can connect you to ACP there. Thank you, Umberto. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Rory. What an amazing session tonight. We'll end the recording there, and we'll take a lot of the questions, I suspect, to the forum and to subsequent webinars, and we'll go to a more general